Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is January 28th, 2021, if you can believe it. I'm Patrick Rogers, your host for this call. We have a great agenda as usual. The latest update on SharePoint Framework, patterns and practices updates across our various program offerings. We have new community sample updates. We'll do our picture time, and we've got, again, 3 great demos from Hugo, Jerry, and Luis. So looking at building personal events web parts with SPFx and Microsoft Graph Toolkit, super cool and excited to see that. We've got a connecting to external APIs in SPFx, case soccer highlights. I can't think of a better use case for SharePoint than soccer highlights. And Luis Manes will close things out with sending notifications to teams from SPFx using the Microsoft Graph. So 3 very cool demos. We'll have those just shortly here in the call. Often we get questions about how to participate in SharePoint patterns and practices, and we've got lots of great ways to participate. We invite all of you, whoever you are, wherever you are, to participate. You can always do a demo on this call. Love the demos on these calls, so just reach out to myself or Vesa, and we will get you scheduled. It might not be immediately on the next call, but it will be absolutely on the soonest call we can get you scheduled. Those demos can cover anything SPFX, maybe provisioning related, anything you create for this call would typically be client-side development oriented, and we have the general development call for other types of development. So lots of opportunities to do demos. Just get in touch with us. Absolutely welcome whoever you are. I know lots of folks are doing amazing work for their companies and their customers, and would love to show that off to the community. We all learn a lot from each other through those demos. Likewise, you can also contribute on GitHub. Contributing can take a number of forms, from reporting issues you might find in any of our offerings, as well as submitting pull requests to either add new functionality or fix issues, and as well helping with issues and questions folks might have in the issues lists is always very helpful. So appreciate everybody that's jumped in and helped there. We've seen a lot of new faces contributing on GitHub, which is fantastic. I know a lot of people are coming out of the Sharing is Caring program, which David will talk about here in a little bit. So really excited to see that growth, and really want to thank everybody for their interest in getting involved. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And finally, you can always provide feedback on the things we're doing in patterns and practices. How are these calls? How's our documentation? And where else can we help? Positive feedback is okay too. And I'll just make a note on documentation feedback. It really helps if you have suggestions or ideas on how to improve it, letting us know we should make the documentation better. I think, we all agree documentation can always be better, but if you have specific feedback around documentation, that's always very helpful to do a little bit of targeted adjustments. And as well, we, of course, accept pull requests for the documentation too. So here's all our links. First link there to our developer videos. These are all the developer-focused videos around building different solutions, different technologies, different authentication scenarios. We also have our PnP videos. These are the community call recordings, recordings of our monthly calls, and other community events will be found in that category. As well, we have a set of open source GitHub repositories, SharePoint, PnP, Office Dev, and Microsoft Graph orgs. Absolutely encourage everybody to get involved in any and all of those as your interests dictate. All of them are open to your feedback, your contributions, and sharing your ideas. So encourage you to get involved. And then sample galleries, we've got great sample galleries for web parts, extensions, list formatting, and Teams samples. And as I've said many times, this is the first place I go when I'm trying to figure out something and want to learn from what's already out there from the community. So it's a great way to figure out how people are solving different problems. And there's so many great samples out there. You can often find maybe not the whole solution to your question, but absolutely a lot of great ideas on how to get started solving your problem. And then finally, the last link, the main one to really remember, aka.ms/m365pnp, is a SharePoint Patterns and Practices landing page, and that's going to get you links to all of this other content that I've just described. So that's the one link to remember, aka.ms/m365pnp. As well, the SharePoint framework documentation can always be linked at, reached at aka.ms/SPFx. And with that, I'll turn things over to David.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. Well, for those that are new to the community or have been with us for a while, as you know, this is a open source inclusive community. So we invite everyone to not only use the resources and tools available to you through the PnP initiative, but also contribute back. With that, though, we understand that there can be some hurdles that you might meet up with, such as things like understanding GitHub, how to use a lot of the tools such as Node, or the framework and the tooling for development. The Sharing is Caring initiative provides hands-on small session guidance where we can get together and go through the process of contributing for the very first time together or submitting to community docs. That's all free, all hands-on, safe space, nothing's recorded, so you can bring your questions. Our sessions are growing. As you can see, we already have 5, including a new AMA that happens once a month. It's going to be after the monthly call, and it's going to be thematic for a PnP initiative. In February, it's going to be the PnPjs team. So we invite you to come with all your PnPjs questions, as well as any other questions you might have that we can cover across the PnP initiative as well. We've got a new site design that matches the primary PnP site. So we're excited about that, and a new office hours initiative. So if you have a specific question where you'd like to get some guidance or some feedback on something very specific that maybe isn't covered already in an upcoming session, you can schedule that with the Sharing is Caring team, and we'll hop on a 15 or 30-minute call with you and provide some answers to those questions or guidance or whatever it is you'd like to collaborate on. So take a look, aka.ms/sharing is caring, and we hope to see you soon. Patrick, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, David, and all the work everyone is doing on the Sharing is Caring initiative. And we thank everybody for their time. And like I said, a lot of great new contributors coming out of that. And with that, I will pass things on to Vesa for SharePoint framework updates.
Cool. Let's go to the following slides. Quick updates in here. Our ETA for 1.12 is getting closer and closer. So previously we communicated that it's a first quarter, and now we're saying it's in February. So we're now talking about weeks, almost days rather than months. So the 1.12 is coming out relatively soon. Like mentioned, it will have the Node 12 and 14 support and Colab 4 support. So we're finally modernizing the baseline tooling. It will have more access on the base structure and the context to our domain dependency. And for as an example, whenever the web part width is being adjusted, you will get an event on a web part. So, or you can read the width of the web part, and then you can render your stuff a different way. And there's other settings there as well. We'll also kind of support complex Microsoft Teams solutions in SPFx solutions. So you can create your Microsoft Teams manifest rather than us auto-generating that for you whenever you're synchronizing to the team. So we'll use whatever you provide whenever you click or whenever stuff is getting synchronized to the team side. We'll also support creating Microsoft Teams meeting applications, and we'll upgrade the Microsoft Teams SDK to 1.8 level. So good refresh coming up with this one, like I said, within upcoming weeks, rather than within months. And then we're looking into having another version before build as well. Have we communicated that before? Maybe not. Maybe this is the first time we're actually saying that. Anyway, and obviously we're focusing on making things and collecting the feedback from you and the community and addressing those more efficiently also after the 1.12 release. But that's a quick update on that one. Let's show it back to Patrick.
Thank you so much, Vesa. And with that, we will go to the PnPjs client-side libraries updates. PnPjs 2.10 released January 15th. This was a really big release for us. It included isolated runtimes for SharePoint and Graph library, support for the Node 15 Webpack 5 module resolution, an add chunked stream version for Node.js, as well as a lot of other updates and fixes. So encourage folks to try that release out. Let us know some feedback. There shouldn't be any breaking changes to any consumers of the library, but we did change a lot of the files internally. So if you find some issues, please let us know. Please report those, and we can absolutely do our best to get those fixed quickly. Speaking of which, we're going to have a 2.11 patch out today. There was an issue reported. We had a thing with the new isolated runtimes where we weren't taking into account some of the global header settings. So we've got that fixed, and we'll get that out later today. We've also got some other fixes that were reported that were not really related to the big changes for 2.10, but happy to get those included as well. So we'll have full details and a changelog and everything else once we get that out later today. Please direct all feedback to the issues list, pnp.github.io/pnpjs for all your documentation. You can follow us on Twitter at m365pnpjs. So thank you all very much. Thank you for everybody helping out with PnPjs, and thanks to Julie for all her hard work to really get these releases out and help out with the library. With that, we will move on to the CLI. CLI for Microsoft 365, we got a new beta 3.5 out with converting files to PDF using graphs, sending adaptive cards, creating Azure AD apps, passing content from files using the @ token, which is similar to the way the Azure CLI handles that, improvements to the SharePoint page management commands, and more. Install the beta version from NPM with npm install -g @pnp/CLI-Microsoft 365 @next. To always get you the latest version. And you can always get more information at aka.ms/CLI-M365. And with that, we'll go to the reusable components. So React Controls 2.4.0 is out. An accessible accordion control, placeholder control, people picker, taxonomy picker, and list picker are all now available in the React controls. And those are, of course, the controls designed to be used in the body of your web parts or application customizers. And then the React property controls are the set of controls designed to be used in your web part edit pane. And so 2.3.0, latest release there. So property field icon picker, property field term picker, and a property field list picker are 3 new and improved controls. So very cool to see this all continue to grow. Thank you to all these great contributors. I know there's a lot of folks working on the reusable controls and making them better and adding new controls. So thank you everyone for all the work there and all the improvements. It really makes a big difference, and excited to see all of these areas continue to grow and grow. So thank you to everybody. And last but not least, our community Yeoman generator. So we are at generator 1.16.0 is the latest version that is out. Angular 11 is now supported, which is a big improvement or a big update there. So I think thanks to Chandani Prajpati for all the work there around Angular. So appreciate getting that updated and in there, providing folks a great new option for building your SharePoint framework solutions with Angular. Other updates, Fluent UI to Fabric 7, PnPjs 2.0.13, Vue.js updates, StyleLint low-jQuery updates, and then the property controls that we talked about on the last slide have all been updated as well. I encourage everybody to check this out as a great way to jumpstart your project development. npm install -g @pnp/generator-SPFx to get you the latest version of the Yeoman generator. And then modern search. So modern search v4 released. Build your own customized modern enterprise search experience. ak.ms/pnp-search for all the details and samples and examples there, but that is now been released. So you can check that out, start building search portals. If you find issues or have ideas, absolutely report those, and encourage folks to get involved with the search stuff as well. So V3 support for bug fixing, docs are available. V3.17.0 released on January 16th, and that was bug fixes. So the V3 stuff is mostly in maintenance mode at this point. And V4 is released on January 18th. So very excited to have that out for everybody. Supports the Graph Search API as well as the SharePoint Search API. So you can choose where to target your searches, re-architected to be modular, and then feel free to test and provide feedback. Of course, always on all our projects, we welcome and encourage your feedback. And there is no direct upgrade from V3. So this is a full change from V3 to V4. So keep that in mind as you look to update your search portals. And now, SPFx samples with Hugo.
I almost feel like I should be letting you speak to it, but I'll make an exception. So the SPFx samples are repositories that allow you to share, but also obviously find samples that you can use in your day-to-day coding activities. We have a few samples in both our extensions repository and our web parts repository. One new one from Michael Maillot, which allows you to add a whole bunch of folders all at once in the document library using a single command. It's very awesome. We also have Robin, who updated his machine translation application extension, which allows you to translate pages, but he's actually made it a lot easier to package and deploy the solution. On the web part side, we have the new content query web part that we demoed, I believe, last call with David and myself. We've added the ability to add Microsoft Graph Toolkit support to the content query web part. There's new updates also coming soon on that web part, so keep an eye for that. As always, we're welcome your contributions. We look forward to seeing your samples. Don't be shy. And again, if you don't know how to get started with submitting samples, feel free to sign up for the Sharing is Caring initiative. That's it for me for today. Back to you, Patrick.
Awesome. Thank you very much for those updates, Hugo. And with that, we are on to our optional picture time. So I think I'll let Vesa coordinate that.
Let me share my screen and enable the video. And there we go. And let me put that one over there so we can actually see everybody in the call, and let me enable the video as well if I have time. I'm already recording this stream because I'm being smart this time. If we can get everybody in the call, just saving a few seconds. I think we are hitting the max 550 attendees. Everybody waving, everybody. Great to see you. We can almost see the SharePoint monkey in the back row as well. Thanks, Rodriguez. Or is it somebody else? Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody. Great to see the faces. So that's it for this one. And let's move into the demos. Thank you.
All right. Our first demo is going to be Hugo. So Hugo, if you're ready to go and want to take over the presentation.
I am.
Take it away.
Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining. My name is Hugo Bernier, and I curate the SPFx samples repository, as you saw earlier. So I review all the samples and I merge the pull requests. And when I merge the pull request for a new sample, I usually reach out to the authors of the samples and I ask them to present on this call. João Mendes is a senior Microsoft 365 architect and solution developer who's created and submitted many amazing samples. But usually because of scheduling conflicts, he rarely has the opportunity to present his contributions on these calls. So today I'll be presenting one of João's latest samples on his behalf. I hope that I'll be doing João's work justice. If you like the demo, please send your kudos to João. If you don't like it, you can absolutely blame me. All right, so the sample that João submitted is something that allows you to show your upcoming calendar events using the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. You can usually recognize João's samples because they always look very professional. In fact, it's often very difficult to distinguish his web parts from the out-of-the-box Microsoft 365. And if you know me, that's one of my holy grail is you always want to make sure that people can't distinguish first-party from third-party web parts. So like his other samples, the code is often deceptively simple. And because of this, I always recommend you take a look at the code to learn some very useful development patterns. The web part I'm going to be showing you today supports themes, section background colors. It can also be used as a SharePoint web part, as a Teams personal app, or a Teams tab. The web part actually uses the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And if you don't know what the Microsoft Graph Toolkit is, here's a quick overview, right? The Microsoft Graph Toolkit, normally, if you wanted to retrieve events from someone's calendar, like this web part does, you'd have to write the code to authenticate, call the Microsoft Graph API, then iterate through all the events to render them, and make sure that you render them consistently, right? But the Microsoft Graph Toolkit is a bunch of web components that you can use in your solution to make it easier to retrieve data from your graph and to render the content in a way that's consistent with the out-of-the-box Microsoft content. If you want to learn more about the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, I recommend that you visit the mgt.dev URL, which you can see in the lower left corner here. You'll find there's a playground that you can use to learn the components and test them. So if you go to the Microsoft Graph Toolkit playground, you'll see that on the left here, you have kind of the list of components. Today's sample is going to be using the MGT agenda, which again retrieves someone's agenda from their calendar and displays it. On the right here is usually you see a preview of what the component's going to look like. This is obviously using sample data when you go to the MGT playground, but you can actually sign in and use your own credentials to actually test this. And then usually on the right of the playground, you actually have a place where you can edit the code and preview. But here's the cool thing about the Microsoft Graph Toolkit is for me to display an agenda. The only thing I have to do once I've set up the Graph Toolkit to work in my solution is I can just call the component by going mgt-agenda. That's it, right? I can pass additional parameters and additional settings, but that's really it. And in fact, Joao's sample shows how to use themes in the extension. So this is a sample that's actually available in the Graph Toolkit Playground where you can actually use a dark theme. But the only thing that you need to do really is to actually specify a CSS class, and then your CSS obviously would define the color, the background, and stuff like that. So it's pretty straightforward. The only thing that we need to keep in mind here is that because the web part uses the Graph Toolkit and the Graph Toolkit uses your Microsoft Graph to require information, you need to make sure that you authorize your web part when you deploy it to have access to the API. Now, unfortunately, I was not able to grab a screenshot before I authorized here, but if you go to your SharePoint Admin Center under Advanced, you'll usually see there's an API access right there, an API access shortcut. It'll take you to a page that will list all the APIs that are requested by all the web parts that you've deployed to your app catalog. One thing I should point out is that that page is actually pretty slow. When you first go to the page, it will show everything as being 0, pending request, 0, approved request, and so on. Just take a break, take a few seconds, and the page will update, and then you'll see all the information. So what would happen normally what would happen when you deploy the web part is you'd have to go to the pending request and approve all the requests one by one just to authorize your web part to have access to this stuff. But that's pretty much all you need to do to use a web part like Joao's or your own, obviously. But let's show you here. So these are the kind of the API requests that are made by the web part. Now, in Joao's sample, he's only accessing the calendar stuff. But if you want to use the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, like the full extent of the Graph Toolkit components, there's obviously a few requests that you would make. I would recommend you only make the API request for the things that obviously you'll be using. But let me show you the web part. Enough about talking about stuff. I've already deployed the web part and I've already authorized it. So now if I go to a page and I just search for the MGT events web part, here's what it does, right? It automatically goes and gets my events. I know it's hard to show the full thing here, but it retrieves my events and then displays them in a fancy calendar. Now, Joao, again, always applies extra, spends extra time to make sure the web part looks great and works well. So this is no exception. He's made it look like document cards that have events inside of them. If you look at the properties that the web part does, it allows you to specify a title, and you can also specify how many days you want to show. One of the things that Joao does is he makes the web part, the property pane, non-reactive. That means that it's not going to refresh every single time you change something. It's only going to refresh once you click apply here. I don't have any more events for the next 8 days, or more than 8 days, so it doesn't matter for me to change this. But the other thing that the web part does is if I go to the section which hosts the web part here, and I change the section background color, you'll notice that the web part is actually aware of the section colors. So that's a very cool feature here that I recommend you try to do in every web part, because again, you don't have control over what colors people will be using in their SharePoint site or where people will be dropping the web parts. So at the very least, you should make sure that it's going to look good in whatever section theme you're using. All right, let's go back to the code. Now, there's lots of areas of code, and we have to go fast. So, I'll go quickly. This will be recorded, and there's screenshots for everything. All right, so let's look at the code. The first thing that you do in the sample is that you have to go to your package.json, and you actually have to tell it that you're going to be using MGT mgt-react. Now, the Microsoft Graph Toolkit is available as a non-React component or non-React package and a React package. Joao uses the React package, which makes it even easier in a obviously React solution to use this. So you would obviously go npm install at Microsoft/mgt-react. Once you've done that, you can actually go to your web part itself. And in your web part, the first thing you need to do is you need to tell Microsoft Graph Toolkit how to authenticate the user that's looking at stuff. Luckily, the Microsoft Graph Toolkit has the concept of providers, right? So there's always a provider that provides authentication. And there's also a SharePoint provider, in this case, that uses the SharePoint context to pass the credentials to the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. So this is the first thing you do in your web part is you register the provider that you want. If you were using Teams, you would obviously use the Teams provider to do this. To make the web part work with the themes, you also have to register the web part as supporting the theme provider and to react to the theme change event. Joao uses different themes that he's predefined for a default, dark, and high contrast. You could use a different approach to do this. I like his approach because he ultimately gets to control a subset of colors in his web part. And then in your web part itself, you just say, okay, I want to support a theme provider. I want to capture the current theme variant. And then in the onInitialize of the web part, we go to the MGT providers. We say the global provider for all the MGT web parts are using the SharePoint provider, and we pass the context of the current web part. Now, there is a little issue with this, which the Microsoft Graph Toolkit team is aware of, is that if you have more than one web part on a page that uses the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, because of the concept of global providers, you might have some issues here with having multiple Microsoft Graph Toolkit web parts. I'm pretty sure that this is something that's going to be solved soon, but that's something to be aware of. Now, because we want to make the web part be aware of themes, we use the theme provider, and we use the theme variant to say, try to get the current theme. And if there's an event where the theme changes, please let us know by calling the theme changed event. Finally, in the web part, Joao uses a little bit of logic here to determine whether we're currently in a Microsoft Teams context, and if we are, he actually applies the themes accordingly for the colors. All right, and then so this is the theme change event. So we just capture the current theme and we re-render the web part. It's actually very straightforward to do this, and that's why I think that everyone should do this in their web parts. And then this is the part where we apply the theme. We don't need to spend too much time on that. In the render, all we really do now is we say, okay, so let's go display the MGT events. And we pass the theme, we pass the scope of the service, we pass the number of days. All the magic then happens in the MGT events component. And the MGT events component is actually using the Microsoft Graph Toolkit agenda control. You remember when I was in the playground, I was showing the MGT-agenda component. If you're using the React version of the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, you don't need to prefix everything by MGT. It happens to know, right? I'm here, I'm the agenda component, and it knows how to render it. And then in the web part, I know this is very deceptive, but in the web part, all that Joao does is he passes the agenda control, he tells number of days that he wants to display, and he passes a template. One of the cool things about MGT is you can templatificate, whatever the word is, to actually control how the events are rendered. And that's important because you don't always want to just use the standard layout. And that's definitely what Joao does here. So he passes an event template. And the event template is actually created in the MGT event component. And all he does, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this. All he does is he creates a Fabric UI or Fluent UI document card that he creates as a stack, and then he passes the data he receives. Now, because he's using a template, he's actually getting in the event, the event that gets called when the template is called to be rendered, I actually have the context of the event. So I have the start time, the end time, and so on and so forth. And he just applies his own formatting for date time. He also does the same thing for MGT person. So all the attendees on the call are on the calendar. And he does that by simply using the person component from the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And he just passes the email address of the user ID. You'll notice here he's also got a flag to show whether the person is actively present or not. But it's actually read it, right? So I know I've gone through a lot of code. I hope that you'll be encouraged to go look at the code. You can find the code at this URL here. If you don't have the time to write the URL, you can just go to aka.ms/SPFX webparts and just look for it. If you want more information about the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, go to mgt.dev is probably the easiest way to get started. And then if you want to send your kudos to Joao for the amazing work he's been doing, that's his Twitter account here. And if you want to complain about stuff, you can definitely reach out to me at bernieage.com. That's it for me for today. Thank you, everyone.
Awesome work as always. Thank you, Hugo. Very cool sample to see that, and great use of the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, which is a fantastic way to get a lot of amazing functionality into your apps quickly, built around the Microsoft Graph. So very cool stuff. Next up is Jerry. Jerry, if you're ready to go ahead and take over the presentation.
So hello and welcome everyone. My name is Jerry Yasser. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Office Apps and Services. I work at DXC Technology as a collaboration architect. So today I'm going to show you a very interesting sample that I developed for an internal at-home scenario that I faced in the last holidays. So basically in the next 10-15 minutes, I'll show you how I developed this web part. So the basic idea behind this sample was, as I told everyone last time, that I'm not a developer, but I like to learn things, especially around SharePoint framework development. So while I was learning it, I saw my kids actually searching on the internet for the crazy soccer videos or the recent soccer highlights. But so they were going to YouTube and they were going to Google or Bing and searching for those highlights. But during that process, I saw that they were actually getting linked to the sites which were not actually safe for the kids. The sites have dialogues and alerts and messages and some pictures that definitely should not be visible to young kids. So that's where I thought of building something where they can go and safely browse the content without worrying about those links. So I started looking for something, and I was mostly looking for an API that I can simply use and utilize inside my web part. My learning was also about the React components, especially the class level components, because I was not very familiar with that. So I thought that I can build something like a hierarchical components where I can display those videos in a certain ways that they can easily browse them and they can see almost all the detail that's available by the API. So, and I ended up finding a GitHub repo that has link of lots of public API that have been categorized by the type of sports, entertainment, images, pictures, videos, and other stuff. So I was able to grab that API, which is provided by SportBat. So this API provides basic information about everything that's happening in the football world right now. And you can simply call that API directly inside. The result is JSON, so you can just utilize it in your code. So as an overview, again, just like I said, this web part is just a very basic example of how we can call an external API into an SPFx web part. So nothing new. If you're learning SPFx as a starter, first thing you'll do is use a fetch API. So you will see that how you can call something from a URL and then display it on the screen. The basic data that is exposed by the API is just the title of the highlight, the teams that are involved, the actual videos, if you have one or many, The highlights work in differently in the highlight world. They are shown as a full highlight of the game, so you can see something like 10 to 15 minutes video where everything is much more detailed. Or if you are much like action viewer, you can actually go and see the highlight, like show me the goal 1 or show me the goal 3. So you can see each goal in and you can pause and forward as needed. The API does not provide like thousands of videos at one time. As I said, these are actually live events that just happened or happening right now. So there are around 90 to 100 games that I was able to figure out. It's around between 90 to 100 videos are exposed through the API. Once you have the data available, you have a couple of options to display that. You can develop everything by yourself. You can actually build the UI for using your component. So you can have a video component that shows the video, and then you can have a video list component where you can bind your the video to the screen. Or there was a second option where the API is providing an add-in or a widget that you can easily embed into the page. So initially, my development was mostly around building everything custom. But then I realized that the UI was much simple. There were not many options for me to show, or it will take a lot of effort for me as a starter to actually build a great UI. And that's where I actually dropped a question on the samples GitHub repo, and thanks for Hugo to actually replying to me about something that was really fantastic. So you can see on the screen that I use the film strip control that basically allows us to display that information in much richer fashion without worrying about any of the complexities behind how you display the information. So I ended up just reading the data and using the sample that was provided by Hugo on his GitHub repo, and of course one of his great blog series about how you can start developing a great UI using SharePoint framework. I was able to get started right away. When I started working from scratch, I found that it would be hard for me. So again, I went back to the samples gallery, found one of the web part that was actually developed. I think it was a meeting web part that was developed some time ago. And I looked at that code, ran that sample, and understood how those links work, and eventually was able to develop a pretty nice looking web part in the end. So if you see that on the screen, it's actually a film strip that you can move right or left. And then you can also do the out-of-the-box paging, or you can do custom paging. The second mode that I initially developed, instead of just removing it, I left it there as a flat mode view. So the flat mode view is just a vertical view of the videos that you can scroll down. Very old way of viewing information, but still valuable information, because I found that the film strip definitely looks nicer. But when I saw that my kids have very small screens in their Chromebooks, so they were not able to see them the way, and they had to do full screen. So what feedback I got based on their testing is that the full view or flat mode is definitely helpful, because they can see the video without maximizing it. So I left it there, and that flat screen is using the custom paging. And I will have to go back and tell you that, again, I did not create it from scratch. I started the basic architecture of how paging worked, how you basically collect the data in an object and slice it based on your paging. Once I did the basic paging, I went back and found another sample on the sample gallery, and I realized how it works. I made it some testing, and eventually used the same idea and implemented it in the web part. So again, a great way of reusing the components that the community built and develop it. So again, if I have to build something for my work or something else, I can actually use the same samples. So let me just go ahead and show you how the web part works. So if I switch over to my browser, but before I do that, let me show you quickly the API output. So this is the API. The URL is right in here. I will leave it in the slides. So you can see that there's a title, and there's a URL and thumbnail. There's a date, and then there are two sites that they played, the competition name, and video. And you can see that the video is actually highlight. And in some of the cases, the video will be highlight, and then there will be a sub-level where they will have more videos available there. So you can actually plug them directly from your code. You can see that there is definitely a chance of improvement, like the idea of having ability to search based on computation, maybe having a drop-down that shows all the unique computations. So it's something that I did for fun, so I didn't invent for it, but definitely anybody could do that because all the information is available. In terms of the GitHub repo, it was right here. This is the API. You can go there and search for GitHub public-APIs, and you can see that there are lots of APIs available. You don't have to use the GitHub API for your first web part that almost everybody uses. So you can pick up any of the APIs from here and then play with it, because every API works differently in terms of how you call it. So let's go back to the actual web part. So this is the page I just created. So let me add a web part. So again, I'll search, click on plus, and search for soccer. And here's the web part. So once I add the web part, and I think I already had the web part on the page before, so it automatically picked up all the properties. But let me just show you how it works. So if I click on the edit properties, the first thing you will notice that I am using some of the SPFx reusable components on the page, other than the film strip, which is the UI fabric. But you can see on the right that I can have a title of the web part that will be visible on the screen. I have a paging slider, so I can just control how many videos I want to see. But this control is more applicable to the flat mode. So if I enable the flat mode, you can see that this goes basically to the standard full-size video, which I'm using the full width of the available zone. So you can change, you can select that, and control how many videos you want to see. So you can set it to 1 or 2, and then your pager will automatically show that. So let me set it back to the film strip mode. And once you click publish, you can then see the videos. You can see that you can scroll to the right. The code base that I have is a little older than the code base that's on GitHub. The GitHub is a little bit newer. It has some UI issues were fixed, and you can look at them when you click on the video. It will open a new window so that you can see it in full fidelity. But you can see that if I come here, I'm not going to play Manchester game. Definitely not. I'm going to play Barca. So you can see that when I click on play, it's playing the video right now. I can hear the audio is there. You might not be able to hear it, but it's basically full fidelity view. You can click on full screen. There do have some icons there or links there that are displaying because of the widget, and using some cool logic, you can actually hide them if needed. One great thing about this widget is that it actually shows you any available live games that are happening right now. So any free games that are happening will appear as green on the top, and if you click on this link, it will take you to that video link and basically plays that live game as well. So it's also a great way of accessing those videos. And the paging, of course, works for, as I showed before, works on the flat screen mode. So this is nothing special here. If I just edit it one more time and show the flat mode, so you can see that I have the web part here. I can go to page 2, and it will show me the videos based on, and I can scroll down and see the video and play it right away. So it's basically high fidelity video, though. Another thing that I've noticed that on something like YouTube, you find videos of the game that are very recently finished, but they are very low quality. But I found that this API provides all the videos in HD, so you can quickly watch the highlight and move on. All right, so with that, let me jump into the implementation of how I did that. As I said before, this is just a starter code, somebody who's learning and developing things for fun. The web part, as I said, basically does use the SPFx reusable controls, like the title. I can't believe I always start from scratch and try to do it myself. And then I realized that you can just drag the component or the placeholder. inside, and it will handle everything for you. And then I'm also using the web part title and the placeholder, so that when the web part is dragged to the page, you can actually see a customize button, and then you can click on customize it, and it looks cool. All right, so you can see that the actual component that does the important job is happening right here in the sports highlight list. So the sports highlight list is the main component that handles all the data and the display of the information. So all I do is on this page is basically pass the page size and the flat mode options that the user selects. And then I go to the list. And in the list, you can see that if I'm zooming in a little bit, so you can see that it just received some of the initial parameters and through the props, and then make a call to the API right here. So again, as a starter, you can use Fetch API or you can use Axios. I'm basically using it because it's the code looks much simpler. And once you have the data, I'm putting it in the web part state so that I don't have to. I can easily slice it and page it. Once I have the data ready, I'm actually passing it to the next component, which is the component that displays the data. So there are two different ways that I'm showing it. So you can see that I have the paged items. The paged items are actually the smaller chunk of the page. So if I say from video 1 to 5, there will be a loop to handle the pages. So you can see that I'm adding showing the buttons on the page, and the same logic is used for displaying the videos, which are right here. So if the video is in flat mode, you can see that I am using the video list. If the video is not using flat mode, then I'm using the sports video list as a film strip view. So again, thanks to Hugo for providing that component. I've just copy pasted it from the sample, and then I developed my own React component that actually showing that information. So let me just wrap it up. So yes, so that you can see the code is right here. That's to play the film strip view. So go back, and that's all that I have. Again, if you have any questions, you can put it on the chat, and I'll be happy to help.
Excellent. Great job, Jerry, related on that one. And like you noted, it's not necessarily a business scenario, but again, there's a lot of good cool learnings related on React components and status switching and all of that in that sample as well. And Luis, I think you have relatively important and really cool, but not super complex scenario. Is that the case, right?
Yeah.
Luis, let's jump on your side.
Yeah. Thank you, Esha. My name is Luis Mañez. I work as a chief architect at Clear People. I'm also an office dev MVP. You can find me on Twitter at Luis Mañez, so feel free to reach out. And in this demo, I'm going to show you how we can send notifications on Microsoft Teams from using the Graph API and from SPFx web part. The sample is already published at the URL below, so feel free to get the code and give it a try. So, well, we all know what a team notification is. We get a bunch of them at the end of the day. So here in the screen, you can see the anatomy. So there's the avatar. Basically, it used to be the image of the user, the icon, which actually, as far as I've seen, is the Teams application that is sending the notification. Then actor plus reason, the actor who did the activity, and any test with the reason of the notification, a timestamp, and more text with the location and the test preview. The location usually is something like your Teams and channel and so on. And all of this is pretty well documented in the URL in below as well. It's very, very important that you take these requirements if you want to use the API, because otherwise that's not going to work. And first of all, you're going to need to register an Azure Active Directory application. If you are using the SPFx web part, you are using below the scenes, behind the scenes, the SharePoint Online Client extensibility. And if you want to use the API from outside SPFx, like a bot or any other thing, and we're going to see the demo using just Postman, then you need to register an application in Azure Active Directory, and you have to grant this permission, teamsactivity.send, okay? And also the Teams application manifest needs 1.7 or greater. And when you are creating your Teams manifest, you need to specify a couple of nodes. One is the web application info. And in this section, you need to specify the ID of the Azure Active Directory application, and also the resource, which is actually the reply URL in the app in Azure Active Directory. And also the Teams application must to be installed for the recipient. That might be the team or the chat or even the user that you want to send the notification. And finally, you have to specify also in the manifest the activity section, defining the kind of activities, activity types that you want to use when sending the notification. And for each activity type, you need to specify the type, which is just a unique name in the manifest, a short description, and then the important part, which is the template test. And this is the template that you're going to use later when sending the notification. And you can specify like tokens, and then later when sending the notification, you pass the real values that you want to replace in the template. So with all of these requirements, you're going to be able to use the API. And it's really, really important that the Teams application needs to be installed either in the team or the chat or the user. Otherwise, you're going to get an exception. So once you have the requirements, you can send notifications, for instance, to a specific user, and then you have the endpoint. This is a screenshot from Postman. So you can see we are calling the user's endpoint with the user ID, and then teamwork send activity notification. This is the full endpoint if we want to notify to a specific user. And then we have to provide the body. This is the JSON. So we have the topic section with source property. The source either has to be entity URL or test. The value, which is the topic value, and basically if the source is entity URL, then the value has to be a Microsoft Graph URL, like Microsoft, Teams, whatever, or something like that. And if you specify test, then it's going to be just a plain test value. And finally, the web URL, which is optional if you are using the entity URL in the source, or if you are using test in the source, then that web URL is going to be the link when the user is going to be redirected inside Teams when you click on the notification. Okay. Then we need to specify the activity type. This activity type has been previously defined in the Teams manifest, as we saw here in the activities. And then you send a preview test with some tests and the different values for the parameters that you want to replace in the template that we define in the activity. So in this case, for instance, if the template test was actor created workspace title, then you can provide the workspace title. The actor is out of the box, is always be replaced by the entity that is sending the notification. Okay. And if we want to send the notification to a team, then we are posting the request to a different endpoint. By the way, this functionality is only available in the beta endpoint. So you are sending the request to beta teams ID of the teams and send activity notification with pretty much the same JSON body that we already discussed. But in this case, after you are sending the notification to the teams endpoint, you need to specify the recipient of the notification, which is basically the user ID that you want to be notified. Okay. Okay, let's do a quick demo. Basically, this is Postman. So in Teams, I've already installed an application. Let's take a very quick look to the manifest. This is the app that I've already shipped and installed in Teams. And as you can see here, there's a web application info section where I'm specifying the ID of my Azure Active Directory application. This is an app that is in my Azure Active Directory. As you can see here, I've already registered an app and I've already configured the permissions to be able to send notifications. As you can see here, teams activity.send. And if we go back to the manifest, the resource is my reply URL, and the different activities. I've already registered a couple of activities, workspace created, and just read this, okay, with the template test and so on. So this app has been already installed in different teams in Microsoft Teams. So I'm gonna be able to send notifications to those teams. So if we go back to Postman and we send this one, for instance, and we go back into Teams, you can see how there's a new notification, and it's saying Carol created the workspace with the name and this kind of information. And if you click, you are actually going to the specific the general channel of the Teams, as you can see here. Okay. And if we do the same to a specific user, in this case, we are sending this activity. And now there's a different notification. And if you click here, now you are being redirected to a specific message. And this is because if we take a look to the body, in this case, the source is text and not entity URL. So we are able to provide a URL that we want to be redirect the user when you click in the notification. Keep in mind that at this stage, the URL must start with teams.microsoft.com. But you can point to a specific message in a channel and these kind of things. So this is how it works when using just the raw API from Postman. And if we jump into the web part, my web part is a Teams tab, so I've just added the tab to these Teams in the general channel. So, well, not the best UI in the world, but you can send a message, and you can choose the user to be notified. And if you send, then this user here is getting another notification. And as you can see, the icon is different because this is the app that I register with my web part, my Teams tab web part. And again, it's going to the channel that I specify in the notification. So this is how it works, the web part, and you can send the notification. So if we go back to the slides, already seen this, and let's take a very quick look to the main code. Basically, the web part itself has been installed as a Teams tab, so there's a manifest for the web part, and in the manifest, I'm specifying the web application info section. In this case, the ID is the one from the SharePoint Online application that you already have installed in your Azure Active Directory, and also the different activity types that you want to define in the manifest. So, well, the web part is just loading a React component and sending some properties from the context. As Hugh already mentioned, we are also using here the Microsoft Graph Toolkit, the React wrapper. So Hugo has given you all the information. So I'm using here the people picker, as you can see from the MGT React. And I'm just configuring the component to show users that are part of the team. This is important because if you try to send a notification to a specific team for a user that is not a member of the team, you're going to get an exception as well. So in this case, I'm filtering the different users by the ones that are part of the team. And well, all the magic is in this function that is pretty much the same as we already seen in Postman. So we post to the specific teams with the JSON, the activity type defined in the manifest, the test that I've already entered in the UI, and the specific user ID that I want to notify. And using the Graph client from the SharePoint framework, we are doing the post and sending the notification. Well, that's all, actually. The web part maybe is not very interesting, but I guess you can imagine quite a few scenarios where you want to send notifications. And I think this is actually pretty cool to have this endpoint available. That's all from my side, and thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, Luis. Wow, I sounded really loud there. So Hugo, Jerry, Luis, thank you very much. Awesome demos today. Really appreciate it. Really great stuff. If you are interested in demoing, please reach out to myself or Vesa. Would love to get you on a future call. This recording will be available in 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 Community YouTube channel. You can follow us on Twitter. Our next SPFx call is February 11th, same bat time. And our next general dev call is next Thursday, February 4th. At the same time. So look forward to seeing everybody then. Thank you all for attending the call. Thank you for being part of the community, and look forward to talking again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody.